Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to the iCANX Talks. Today we're going to have a very special day. I'm Miso Kim. I'm Professor Miso Kim from Sungkyunkwan University, South Korea. I'm a very frequent moderator here. I've devoted to iCANX Talks, which is my greatest pleasure, especially today. So before we move on, I'd like to introduce all these amazing speakers for our September iCANX Talks. Today, we're going to have two amazing speakers to celebrate Asian Day, and you're going to have four more in the upcoming weeks, as you can see from the slide here. And today, this is a very special day because we are going to celebrate Asian Special Research Day. So we're going to have two amazing speakers. One Professor Yi-Kuen Lee from Hong Kong University of Science and Technology, and the other amazing speaker is Professor Mohammad Qasaimeh from New York University, Abu Dhabi. Our very first speaker from Middle East, so which is our greatest honor to have him. So, and I'm your moderator, and we're going to have three panelists from different regions. So one from Thailand, two from China. So let's just wait for the later part. So the first speaker will be Professor Yi-Kuen Lee from the Hong Kong University of Science and Technology. And he's going to give us talk on his research on the I'm sorry about that. So let me just okay. So I need to introduce him here, but I missed my paper here. So he will introduce himself a little bit, and then he will be the representative of the Hong Kong. I'm sorry about that. I'm missing his biography here. So the displays are all overlapped. Sorry about that. So please welcome Professor Yi-Kuen Lee from the Hong Kong University of Science Technology. The stage is yours.
Okay, thank you. First, I would like to thank this Professor Ellie Zhang and also the this host, Professor King, to introduce me. So that, of course, I'm Professor Yi-Kuen Lee from Hong Kong, USA. I'm in mechanical and aerospace engineering, also in this CBE, chemical and biomolecular engineering. Also, I'm in charge of our Hong Kong UST nano system fabrication facility, also involved with iCANX. I also got involved in this Hong Kong CRC 300 million grant with UC Berkeley. Anyway, so let me quickly try to introduce one of my project about how can we try to integrate this kind of new branch of microfluidic device from basic research to a clinical study and then integrate with AI. So that's something I would like to share with you about my journey to see. So that, well, my research always is integration of mechanics, theoretical applied mechanics, math, microelectronics, bioengineering, and for advanced CMOS and biochips. So that actually I do have one of a unique research work with my PhD advisor, Professor Ching Ho, about FCE for personalized DSM, TCN for and via TCP pattern. And also we have also developed some CMOS ISFAB using advanced TSMC CMOS process. We developed one of leading technology, and I'm glad today I received the email. My PhD student, Dr. Mingzhen Duan, who got the job offer by Apple in Silicon Valley. And actually Apple going to apply for special kind of visa, outstanding visa for my PhD student to join Apple because his contribution in CMOS ISFAB. Anyway, so that I've been working, I think all of you know that now advanced semiconductor going to 5 nanometer, 3 nanometer in mass production. But on the other hand, we're in this kind of more and more. So my long-term research is on MEMS, sensor, actuator, and biochip microfluidics. So that, and of course, I have been working on basic research on microfluid mechanics and micro heat transfer for more than 20 years. How to look at the fundamental of this kind of modeling, simulation, and fabrication of a microfluidic device, and also the microchannel, microheater, temperature sensor, and all. Actually, this is my long-term is integrated with theory by all the mechanics, linear dynamics, chaos dynamics, and with this kind of technology, we try to do. Of course, 11 years ago, I was at Caltech and in Yi Chong's lab, and I was collaborating with UCL Med School to apply my microcarotid mixer for this kind of new branch of silicon nanopore, the kind of antibody for CC. Then I realized my microfluidic technology can be useful for research. That, of course, as I told you, I'm in charge of a UST facility for this kind of clinical facility, so that we got the again, we have got the $30 billion for new Guangzhou campus, and we have this kind of, I think, good infrastructure for research for developing this kind of microfluidic, MEMS, and semiconductor. So anyway, I think CTC overview node is one of three important liquid biopsy, right? The CTC, ctDNA, and this kind of exosome, so that of course CTC changing is also low concentration, heterogeneity, and also EMT loss of some biomarker. So that and of course eventually this is one of the big problems in China. Every year we have 4.6 million get cancer. Every one day we have 10,000 this cancer patient, including my student. Unfortunately I have a one student who 11 years ago who got lung cancer and passed away within 6 months. This is one of the most things I think I should not do basic research. I should continue to push technology, be more applied research. And of course, here give a brief history about CTC from 1800 to 2000. Basically, the first this kind of research actually thing is 1869. They identify those kind of a cell inside the kind of blood vessel actually relate to the cancer, right? In this kind of Thomas Oswald in Australia. And then, of course, until I think 2004, cell search is the first one got FDA approval, and afterward, actually allowable this kind of micro and nano technology used for a different kind of CTC detection. Of course, today we have another speaker mentioning about his own research work, right? And so anyway, so that in general, I would say CTC in general is one of a potential idea to this kind of biomarker. And of course, the key thing is how you continue to work on from basic research to clinical application. So that in general, I think it's still difficult, I would say, but at least give you some ideas so that you can potentially can go some kind of screening, diagnosis, prognosis. At least 2004, we are in the prognosis regime by cell search. And I think with advanced kind of micro and nanotechnology with AI, hopefully we can really move on to the personalized cancer diagnosis and treatment. So that and gradually CTC gradually recognized by cancer expert in AJCC, ASCO, and CSCO. Is the kind of cancer expert. So that I will just show you that I think it takes time to let those kind of medical doctor and cancer to recognize this can be useful not only for basic research, right? So that here I just show you one of highlight for CTC in the AJCC, American Journal of Clinical Oncology, for breast cancer staging. And of course, recent one is 2022, American Society of Clinical Oncology. They also try to continue to review about CTC, and at this moment, I think gradually, I think they think will gradually become more mature, be used in this kind of cancer diagnosis. But here I just briefly mentioned about my research. This is one of my student, Dr. Zhao Cong. Actually, he actually has a background in bioengineering in Stanford, and so that I asked my student to really think about fundamental principle about microfiltration. We examine about microfiltration and use all this kind of cancer cell line research. Once you collect a lot of this kind of a basic cell line experiment with microfilter with different cell type, different pulsi, flow condition, and then we use dimension analysis as a novel this kind of dimensionality reduction. Actually, this is interesting compared with those kind of machine learning, such as PS Disney by one of the 3 AI experts in the world, Geoffrey Hinton, right? And so that I would say I have been using dimensional analysis for more than 20 years. I think this is a more than 100 years old tool. I think it's very useful. I encourage all of you to do it. Anyway, by trying to collect data of our own experiment data, we normalize in the higher dimensional space, we identify 2 parameters, right? Normal parameter, capillary number and normal cell size. And then it's interesting. Also, we come with found the critical CA. Capillary number is 2 forces related to the blood flows on cell and also cell elasticity, enabling application of a microfluidic chip and personalized microfluidic process. Here I show you 3 kinds of spatial regime. When CA is smaller, right, then typical velocity of flow rate, CA equal and CA larger than capillary number, and then actually they're very unique difference. So that we identify this kind of thing is critical. It turns out nobody in the world try to understand this kind of very complicated fluid structure interaction. Why in our theoretical applied mechanics is very tough. So that's why I try to supervise my PhD student background in mechanics to look at the nonlinear two-dimensional 2D theta MCK model to solve the challenging fluid structure interaction. And using the hyperelasticity, maybe some of you may not know, actually, I have very solid literature training about the kind of theoretical applied mechanics. So using this kind of hyperelasticity, we burn the nonlinear elasticity of cell, and then we're the first one in the world to come with a simplified compound model using the language of semiconductor industry, so that to solve this kind of challenging problem. If you use CFD, you can take forever. This kind of CPU time enhancement at least 1,000 to 1 million times more efficient. So that is important, enabling how can we try to do device optimization. And here I demonstrate that we demonstrate this kind of critical CA number 4 for CTC white blood cell, and then you can try to optimize this kind of. Actually, it's nonlinear. It's nonlinear phenomena, so that we can actually to optimize capillary efficiency and also try to get rid of this kind of non-CTC depletion of white blood cell for all magnitude. And actually, we have consistent. We do some simulation experiment. We demonstrate this kind of model is very important, useful. Why to build guideline in terms of phase diagram X is capillary number, Y is the normal cell size, and experiment M simulation is very consistent. We also try to come with develop SOI wafer to optimize our device, and then of course we continue to what by device level. Actually, we work with a series of medical doctors in Dr. San Yan San University Cancer Center in Guangzhou, China, and then we realize our technology can be even much better than US FDA approved cell surgery machine. One machine, cell surgery in main China is 4 million RMB, Chinese yuan. So they continue to receive the funding between the Guangdong and Hong Kong joint research scheme, and then try to graduate from device to, in order to do much large scale clinical research, we have to do automation, because on device level, one sample, my PhD have spent 5 to 7 hours. If you want to have hundreds of patients, oh my God, it's a long time. So continue to think about automation. So I have a unique this kind of experience feedback control, so that we 2017 first generation personalized microfluid system, and then second generation, third generation, fourth generation. Now actually we are in the 5th generation. And then to measure, basically this generation, basically we can do personalized electrofluid fluorescence, and then also do some personalized you can in-house optimize the kind of multi-color fluorescent immunostaining. So that, and then actually in the middle of the year, we are trying to do much high quality clinical study. We try to follow ISO standard for medical device for quality control, ensure reliable clinical research. That is something I think is very critical. We have to maintain good quality control. And here just show you that we work very hard from device, packaging, and then second device, and then electronic system, hardware, and also anyway. And then again, personally, I'm surprised. This kind of CA star is not only can be used to optimize the device level, the kind of cell efficiency. I'm surprised. This kind of critical CA number can be used for personalized MEF process. Like every patient, if we get the blood, actually we make a hypothesis. Cancer is very complex disease. Every patient's blood is complicated, so that we think it's possible we can use our critical CA star to do some personalized MEF process. It turns out we did it. This is a surprise me, actually. I never thought about theoretical modeling simulation come with this kind of CSS constant are able to do the translational research from cell research all the way to the clinical study. And this demonstrates this is real prostate cancer patient with and without personalized MEF process. We can ensure this kind of a personalized observation for accident, this consistency, this detection. This is something I would say is quite sure demonstrate this kind of fundamental research can really try to come with a unique technology. And actually, we also try to show you the workflow of personalized MEF process in collaboration with Professor Zhizhong Pan's group, he's a colon cancer expert, and also Professor Yu Liu in Guangzhou First People's Hospital. And anyway, so here you basically we try to do rheology, measurement of a blood sample, and these are all cancer patients. And then optimize this kind of pMEF processor, and then we ensure we have maintain personalized observation of each patient using our this kind of pMEF technology. And then here I just show you we demonstrate pMEF chip can beat US FDA approved cell surgery machine in collaboration with Sun University Cancer Center. And then it brings us to apply more funding with our cancer expert, Guangdong Hong Kong Joint Research Project. And also with this kind of Professor Yu, my former postdoctor in now is this kind of lab director in Guangzhou First People's Hospital. And anyway, here we continue to do this kind of IRB approved clinical study. Seeing here, I think I show you, we have done the colon cancer. Seeing we as clear with the more this kind of patient we demonstrate we can do very good this kind of result clinical study. Our this kind of we can do this kind of detection of stage 2 cancer patient. And here we continue to work with got additional collaborator. Like this is a First People Affiliates Hospital of Zhejiang Realty in Hangzhou, China. This Hangzhou is where Alibaba located. We got 250 sample, 130 patients, 12 type cancer. First, I was surprised. This kind of CA star are able to detect 12 type cancer without very complicated biochemical biomarker. With that, acknowledge Professor Xu Nong and Professor Zheng's collaboration. They really gave us a lot of support in clinical sample. And then this is a case study about every sample. It means very the critical life, you say. So that stage 4 gastric cancer. So it demonstrated 75 years old, and then we based on the cancer staging TAMM stage 4, and then you see we demonstrate on 2021, and then we first get the first this kind of CTC testing with 7.0 cc of blood, CTC is 9, and the other months we get the CTC 3, and basically we can demonstrate to our medical doctor so that the CTC as function of time can be useful as a way to this kind of treatment monitoring. And also case 2, we also demonstrate this thing CTC increase with along with CTM. CTM is cluster of CTC and with the other kind of cell. And this patient is I think that's a kind of thyroid tumor. Actually, I continue to learn a lot more cancer biology, cancer because I never learned a lot about this kind of tumor cancer when I was a student. So anyway, childhood cancer is all this something I have to learn much more. Anyway, we demonstrate this kind of personalized immune process can really use this kind of good cancer monitoring and disease progression. And also, we also demonstrate another thing that actually we have a lot more very beautiful result. CTC as functional time indicate risk of disease progression. So anyway, here I show you we can really have a good this kind of result, and then compare with the other method technology. Actually, we really show excellent capture efficiency, purity, between white blood cell, and clinical sensitivity and specificity 100%. And then of course here I show you, of course, now actually we continue to have a lot more this kind of technology. And here I show you in the recent 1 or 2 years, for example, EpiScience in California come with AR-V7 plus CTC, can do some personalized prostate cancer therapy, HER2 fish CTC for breast cancer. Actually, I'm collaborating with one of the biotech company affiliated with to develop this kind of HER2 fish. And Dr. Xue's company in actually affiliated with Surgeon Verti actually is expert in fish technology. And also, of course, single cell CTC and is excellent in UCLA and Harvard Medical School. I think I can study tumor heterogeneity at single cell level. And so also CTC for PD-1 and CTC culturing at UCLA, Harvard Medical School. And also there's another company from Taipei Medical Hospital, University Hospital is cancer-free biotech. I think he's the first one to come with very mature workflow for CTC, the right organoid for this kind of thing. So actually, I also collaborate with cancer-free biotech company. And of course, recent 1-2 years, there's another important trend, how integrate CTC with ctDNA increase clinical performance. So that this is a this kind of center research in multiple hospitals in the United States. Okay, anyway, I jumped to another thing. So that the things last December 2022, and all of you know that we got the ChatGPT. So that I believe we are undergo this kind of industrial revolution. So that we are in the AI 2.0. So that it's clear most likely we have Moore's law for AI, and so this is show like important things, and of course there's another excellent this kind of Ray Kurzweil have this kind of interesting chart singularity, so that he several years ago in Time magazine he demonstrated like 2023 our AI may reach the human brain power. From my own standing, I think we are in this kind of a critical year of time. We are in the AI 2.0. So that, of course, all of you should know that the founder and CEO of OpenAI, and actually he is, you may want to look at his whole AI for next era, so that Moore's law for everything. From my point of view, all the smart systems, smart devices, smartphones, smart car, smart buildings, smart medical device, most likely will have this kind of GPT-based, this kind of AI in the near future. And so, of course, if you look at this kind of one of leading this kind of ARC investment in new city, so that from Kathy Wood's prediction, we are in AI 2.0. This kind of new AI 2.0 creates potential 200 trillion potential disrupt in every industry, including this kind of biomedical technology, precision therapy, multi-omic technology. What I think is quite interesting for thing. Of course, can impact on this kind of efficiency of this coding programming. Actually, I've been using this kind of GPT 4.0 to develop a series of the code for modeling simulation with my PhD student. It's real truth. Before I take the 1 month, I only by 1 week, and 1 week, maybe 1 day, I can finish the kind of modeling simulation. So that I have to show this kind of thing. It really improves my productivity. And also we have a transformer to GPT 4.0, we are in AI 2.0. Jensen Huang, this is a $1 trillion man, right? He's a NVIDIA with $1 trillion market capital. He mentioned iPhone moment of AI in UC Berkeley. It's kind of special talk. So that for sure, every 1 or 2 weeks, we have new progress. Actually, I also continue to learn a lot more this kind of AI 2.0 tool, including Auto GPT and a lot more. And anyway, so the GPT, I would say, is a good tool for me for my team actually to be much more efficient. Read 100 million of paper, understand 90 language, English, Chinese, French, and pass US medical license exam, and pass MBA, pass Google interview, so that and for sure, I believe it can be useful for our research, especially for CTC, cancer diagnosis for sure. And of course, it can show the kind of landscape of AI. So it's I would say it's also amazing. Here I show you one of example about AI stock companies, so that these are all related to the imaging and diagnosis for medical diagnosis. In particular, HAI in New Studio by Professor Thomas Fook. Actually, his RM FDA approval for prostate cancer for this kind of traditional biopsy, and at the same CT scan for lung cancer. I would say with this kind of AI 2.0, I believe we will a lot more this kind of AI 2.0 can be used for medical diagnosis, traditional CT scan, and also traditional golden state biopsy, and CTC, ctDNA, and so on. And that is something, of course, I actually supervised one of very smart undergrad student, Patty, Indian student in our Hong Kong UC. Is smart actually. In 2019, I give this kind of Europe project. As I told you that I do think AI is important. So by more than 5 to 6 years, I already try to start to work on AI with our Symbols Mans and Microfluidic, and I got the $10 million work with USD MIT project. And also I got the very talented student, Patty, to work on the first this kind of AI for CTC. And I'm surprised that after he finished undergrad from our UG, he spent 1 year in MSc in Columbia University, and he actually is a co-founder of an AI company in Y Combinator in Silicon Valley. I'm very proud of my student. I can do this kind of AI for CC, and also can come with AI and start company in Silicon Valley. And of course, here just show you that of course all this kind of again AI need the training, so that the new network for what cell. I think it's important. I will not jump immediately to the clinical CTC image. We need to be very patient to understand about different kind of cell in human blood. So that in this case, I demonstrate that basically we do some neural network for a white blood cell classification. First, try to use this kind of open source data, and then try to understand this kind of classification. Because the white blood cell, and in general, you can see you already have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then so that and then gradually my student also try to use the YOLO. It's unsupervised reinforced learning, right? First introduced in 2016 by Joseph, right? In University of Washington, and then so I say afterward, I think there's a lot more this kind of YOLO, V2, V3, V4, and anyway, so that I continue. I think this all they take time to do this kind of training, so that here I just demonstrate that we are still working on this. Is still for all this kind of AI, it take time to do this kind of training, so that at least I demonstrate that we are now work with my student and also my RA very hard. We are trying to continue to work on this kind of deep learning training. And here I just give you one example, so that gradually I would say AI we just teach the little kid, right? You have to use this kind of deep learning to train okay, this is CTC, this is white blood cell, and this is the non-CTC. So that anyway, so that I think this AI is learning, so that and then of course, before we finish a lot more, all this kind of deep learning model require big data. So that's why I push my team to not only microfluidic device to do much more automation. Once you have automated kind of microfluidic system, we can get a lot more data to train this kind of AI, this kind of deep learning model. So that is something I believe my team gradually with this kind of a personalized MEF system with very high quality of this kind of CCC and NC data image while train this AI. So I would say hopefully in the near future, less than 1 year, we will try to get a very good result. Of course, at the same time, I actually try to think about before we jump into those kind of deep learning model. As I told you, somehow deep learning model is a nonlinear complex system, so that we difficult to understand. So that and then actually I talk to my student, can we try to look into much more detail about each image? Why? Actually, every image is a matrix, right? As it's high dimension space. In higher dimension space, can we have a little bit more deep understanding about this kind of a CTC or non-CTC? So that then I try to think from fundamental principle, right? In terms of digital image processing, what's the basic tools? Frequency transformation, right? If we transform from this kind of in another domain, like fluid transform, it's quite important in one dimensional this kind of video, audio. So if you use two-dimensional Fourier transform, right, and then try to convert this kind of CTC and non-CTC white blood cell, and then into this kind of two-dimensional frequency domain, and then here, actually, I show you it's very amazing. So that even without this kind of data and also this kind of very complicated deep learning model, we find kind of in the kind of two-dimensional frequency domain, we find they are very different between this kind of CCC and NCC. And of course, once we see we do additional processing of a frequency domain, just like in many kind of electrical engineering, so that once we try to understand in frequency domain, and then I think in this case we have understand a lot more the kind of cell morphology than typical way we try to look under fluorescent multi-color fluorescent microscope image, right? So of course we are still using this kind of more mature based on cancer biology. We're using this kind of multi-color fluorescent image staining, right? But if we try to look at fundamental principle, I think we may be able to identify additional feature, right, in two-dimensional frequency space. Of course, I would say still these are ongoing research. From my point of view, in the near future, gradually we will introduce this kind of multimodal, this kind of AI system like GPT-4, GPT-5 with multimodal. This kind of AI thing, I believe most likely we may identify a lot more this kind of a biomarker beyond our conventional this kind of cancer like knowledge, cancer biology, and also microfluidic and the thing. So that is something I think is quite important. Of course, I also take the opportunity to show for low-hanging fruit before we finish all this kind of hard working of train our AI model. Another low-hanging fruit is can we leverage this kind of a ChatGPT or GPT 4.0 as a large language model, so that actually I try to fine-tune this kind of ChatGPT, so like upload a lot this kind of CTC, very excellent, this kind of CTC, this kind of paper, research paper. And then in this case, I believe this kind of ChatGPT, CTC chatbot can provide additional insight because, as I mentioned, ChatGPT, GPT 4.0, read 100 million, this kind of open source, this kind of paper or something, right? And so with GPT 4.0, not only text but image, I believe this kind of GPT-4, GPT-5 can understand more on those kind of CTC image and CC. So anyway, of course, this is open. So I also invite you, all of you may want to try this particular interesting, this kind of ChatGPT CTC chatbot. So that, I would say this is I do think all this kind of cancer research, we need to work together so that if interesting, of course, we can work together to make this kind of open source, this kind of CTC, this kind of platform, and globally, as I told you, cancer is a big problem in China and globally, right? In China, every year we have more than 4 million people got cancer, right? And globally, every year we have 20 million to 30 million people got cancer. So that I want to go through this iCANX opportunity to see if some of you are interested. I think we should work together to think about how collect all the big data through this kind of international network to train this kind of unique the ChatGPT or CTC GPT or Cancer GPT or more. So that with this kind of multimodal, this kind of model, so I believe in very near future, we are going to have new kind of AI CTC or AI CTs for cancer diagnosis. Anyway, here I did the conclusion so that basically I try to re-examine this kind of many decades, at least 30, 40, 50 decades, 50 years, this kind of a conventional microfiltration. And we realize when the cell goes through the microfilter, cell will undergo large deformation. So that in this case, we have used hybrid elasticity large deformation model. Here I propose this kind of generalized microfiltration theory framework and can propose this kind of first one in the world, nonlinear two-dimensional CK model. Well, instead of this kind of CFD computation model, it's at least I would say 1,001 million times much more efficient for device optimization. And then with dimensional analysis, we're able to do this kind of from the physical space full of high normalize this kind of space. We identify this kind of interesting new family of biophysical biomarker we call the critical CA. Basically, it's a new type of property of cell in the microfluidic device. Because we have cell property, right? We have this kind of biochemical property of cell, of a Young's module of a cell. Now I introduce one type of a new, this kind of I would say property of the cell with respect to the microfluid, a differential normal cell or cancer cell CC, and critical CA enable translational research from basic cancer cell line to the personalized clinical study and work with multiple tier 3, the hospital in China, in Guangzhou and Hangzhou, and we were surprised. This kind of very simple CA star are able to detect 12 type of cancer type without very complicated biochemical biomarker. And I believe integration of AI 2.0 like ChatGPT, GPT 4.0, and with our pMEF system. Basically, our pMEF this kind of system provide automation, provide lots more data to train this kind of AI. Will be promising solution to revolutionize this kind of cancer diagnosis. And I acknowledge our Hong Kong RGC and Hong Kong ITF Guangdong province and the Hangzhou government funding. Acknowledge my team with Hong Kong University, University, economic clinical collaborator in Professor Xu Nong, Professor Pan, Professor Yu Liu, and also have collaborator in Hong Kong UST, TSMC, Guangzhou, Hong Kong, UCB, MIT, and more. And that's it for my talk. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for sharing your interesting talk, especially you integrated the AI. And then that was a very fascinating story. So we can talk about it in the panel discussion. And I'm truly sorry that I couldn't properly introduce you because of the technical issue with my computer. Sorry about that.
It's okay. It's okay.
Okay, thank you so much.
So now, okay, I will unshare and let another speaker, right?
Yeah, so that I can share mine. Thank you.
Sure.
So let me introduce our next speaker, Professor Mohammad Qasaimeh. So this is a proper pronunciation, correct one, hopefully. And he's from New York University, Abu Dhabi. As I introduced before, he's our very first speaker from Middle East. So let me introduce his bio a little bit before he starts. So Professor Qasaimeh is an associate professor of mechanical engineering and bioengineering at New York University, Abu Dhabi, NYUAD. Prior to joining NYUAD, he was a postdoctoral research associate at MIT and a research fellow at the Harvard Medical School. And Dr. Qasaimeh completed his PhD degree in biomedical engineering from Mecca University. So his current research interests include developing microfluidic and MEMS devices for point-of-care diagnostics. I'm sure he's going to share his research interest today, very interestingly. So let's welcome him, and the stage is yours, Mohammad.
Thank you so much, Professor Ken, for the nice introduction. And thank you, Professor Alice, for the invitation. This is an amazing event. This is my first time to attend and talk, but it's something that I'll be sure to keep attending in the future, and also to involve more people from the Middle East. So it's my honor to be the first from the Middle East. So let me check. You see my slide in full screen?
Yes, very beautifully.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening for people in Asia. My name is Mohammad Qasaimeh. My pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for the organizers. Today I'll be talking to you about multiphysics microfluidic props for cell manipulation and analysis. And I see my presentation is coming in a beautiful scheme after the presentation of Professor Lee as well, because he already spoke about microfluidics and CTC. And I would like to acknowledge the beauty of integrating microfluidics with AI, even though I don't do that. So it is the future of microfluidics. Before moving forward into the science, let me proceed to my next slide. So I come from New York University campus in Abu Dhabi. Abu Dhabi is in UAE, United Arab Emirates. And here is a short video trying to tell you where we exist. So we are in the United Arab Emirates in Abu Dhabi, located in an island called Saadiyat Island, less than 2 hours driving to Dubai. So perhaps most of you are familiar more of Dubai, but Abu Dhabi is the capital of the UAE. So if you ever pass by the area, I would be delighted to welcome you to our campus. So NYU, New York University, is a global network university. The main campus is in New York, as the name is suggesting, and the institution is almost 200 years old. So that is the main campus in New York in the USA. The second campus was opened in 2010, and that's in Abu Dhabi in the Middle East. That's abbreviated as NYUAD. We are almost 13 years old. And the third main campus, degree granting campus, is in China, in Shanghai, and that's since 2012. So in fall 2020, NYUAD welcomed around 500 students coming from 82 different countries, 6 different continents, speaking more than 75 languages. And of course, English is the common speaking language among all. So we have a very vibrant and diverse community of undergraduate students, of researchers, PhD students, as well as faculty. So the composition of NYUAD is absolutely diverse, and our people come from around the world. If you would like to learn more about NYU Abu Dhabi, you can go to YouTube and just search for NYU Abu Dhabi, and there is a bit outdated video, but still will give you a good idea about what is NYU AD and how we look in the Middle East. Also, I would like to invite you, since you go to YouTube already, to search for MicroTask 2021 Lab Sneak Peeks Part 1. And if you go to the third part of this Part 1, you can tour my lab virtually. So you can find this information on YouTube. I will encourage you to do so. Also, it's my honor to be the general chair for the upcoming Mars conference. It's happening in our campus in NYU Abu Dhabi. It's coming soon, around 5 weeks from now. So the first day is October 9th, where it's just welcoming everyone and registration. But the first scientific program will start on October 10th. So I highly encourage the audience here to look up the Mars conference, and the registration is still on. And if you can join us, that would be a great pleasure for us. So before diving into the science, I would like to acknowledge my students, researchers, and postdocs, and the granting agencies as well, and the institutions that helped us to do the science to be discussed today. So this is how the outline of my presentation today is going to go. First, I'll give a few slides about what microfluidics is and why we care about microfluidics, just to make sure we are all on the same page here with the audience. And then I will go and give you a few examples of microfluidic technologies from my own lab. And Professor Lee already spoke about amazing microfluidic platforms integrated with artificial intelligence. But what I will do, I will go and speak about some technologies we develop in my lab, and then I will move forward and focus the discussion on the concept of the microfluidic probe, how it is an advancement of a classical microfluidic chip, what is the advantages and disadvantages, how the original concept was developed, when and where, etc. And then I'll move into 3D printing integrated microfluidic probes and speak about multiphysics microfluidic probes. And then I will have, by the end, few slides speaking about 3D printed AFM, or atomic force microscopy tips. So now microfluidics is the field that deals with the precisely controlling and manipulating fluids at the sub-millimeter length scale. When we speak about microfluidics, the true length scale, of course, depends on the chip and the application, the intended application of the chip. So might range from few micrometers to few millimeters. And when we look at the volume scale, we are speaking about few picoliters to few milliliters, depending on the application and the chip itself. So why we care about microfluidics? Because microfluidics is an enabling technology in engineering applications, in material science, in biology and clinical applications, as we saw with Professor Lee's presentation, and also in chemistry. And to be able to work with microfluidics, also you need knowledge in engineering, knowledge in material science, knowledge in biology, and knowledge in chemistry as well. So it's a pretty multidisciplinary field, the field of microfluidics, especially the biomicrofluidics. But why should we care about biomicrofluidics? Because the field of biomicrofluidics is envisioned to bring an entire diagnostics lab inside a chip. And Professor Lee already spoke about Moore's law as well. So the point, so the microfabrication technologies and the point of microfluidics were all envisioned and borrowed from the industry of microelectronics and integrated chip. So we all know that computers maybe less than 100 years started to be a full room size, but now with the technology of microelectronics and integrated chip, we all have very powerful computers in our pockets. Now the same thing is envisioned for the field of biomicrofluidics and lab on a chip, that you can bring an entire lab and fit it into a very small chip. And that small chip will have small footprint, will consume a very low amount of samples, very low volume or small volume of samples. and you can have high throughput experimentation within that small chip. Plus, which is a big plus, that when we deal with fluids at the microscale, there are very unique physical phenomena that we harvest and utilize to design a very innovative experiments that otherwise very challenging to perform at the man scale or the macro scale. To name a few, such as the laminar flow, the diffusion-based mass transport, capillary forces, electrowetting, etc. So over the years, over the past 20 to 30 years, microfluidics has proved to be an enabling technology and to serve as a precision tool for cell manipulation and separation, and has been used for pathogen detection, for biosensing and diagnostics purposes, heavily used nowadays in tissue engineering, and also for single cell analysis, for drug screening, and for rare cell isolation, as the example explained in the previous talk about circulating tumor cells, or CTCs. So now, next, I'll show you a few examples of microfluidic technologies we develop in my lab. And after that, we will move to speak about the microfluidic prop, which is the main topic of this talk today. So here is an example, again, speaking about CTCs of a technology we develop in my lab. So circulating tumor cells are very rare cells. The circulating tumor cells will migrate from the primary tumor, circulate with the blood, and then find a new home within the human body, make the secondary tumor. And based on clinical studies, most of patients die because of the aggressive secondary tumor, not the primary tumor. So now the big point, if we can take a blood sample from the patient, and that would be equivalent to a liquid biopsy sample, and we run it in these microfluidic chips. And if we can capture these circulating tumor cells, count them, study them, do some elastic phenotyping, as Professor Lee showed earlier, or do nanomechanical analysis as we do here. So the technology we're developing in my lab, so these are the different microfluidic chips where you introduce the blood sample coming from the patient inside the chips. Each chip over here is functionalized with different recognition receptors. So the first one over here, we can see the regular EpCAM, while the other two are more where they are functionalized with recognition receptors more related to the prostate cancer that we are dealing with in this specific example. After capturing these circulating tumor cells, we can do the labeling. And after that, we peel off the PDMS chip. So we take these two layers of the microfluidic chip apart, leaving the captured circulating tumor cells on the bottom glass slide. We approach it with an atomic force microscopy tip, and then we start analyzing the nanomechanical properties of these circulating tumor cells, trying to look for nanomechanical biomarkers. And when we speak nanomechanical biomarkers, here we are looking at the stiffness or the elasticity, as well as the adhesiveness of these cells. So the big example, the big simple example we just speak when we speak about this project is like when you go to the market, when you're buying tomatoes, usually you pick these tomatoes one by one, you touch them, and if they are stiff or if they are sticky, then you build your decision to put it in your bag or not based on that. So we're trying to do that at the nanoscale with these captured circulating tumor cells. I'm not speaking more about this project here. I'm just giving you examples of some microfluidic technologies we develop in our lab. So this is another example of some microfluidic technologies in collaboration with my colleague, Professor Yi-Kuen. He's from the New York campus, so he's in New York, and we developed this microfluidic platform integrated with a massive array of rectangular microwells. And the big idea over here is to utilize the entrapped air blocks to centralize the cell loading within the central region of every or each rectangular microwell. And after that, we do immunoassay studies, and we study the secreted cytokines from each cells for the purposes of immunogenotyping. And here is the published paper in case you would like to learn more about it. So another collaborative work with my colleague, Professor Lee from Pittsburgh School of Medicine, where we developed an integrated microfluidic chip. So here you can see the microfluidic chip. It's PDMS based, and cancer cells, a HeLa cell line in this example, will be cultured in the cell testing chamber over here. And now by developing a pumping system for this chip, we can control the time or let me say the spatiotemporal stimulation of these cells with different reagents such as TNF-alpha, and then we study the cell decision to die or to survive, which is the survival pathway and the apoptotic pathway at the single cell level. So I'm just trying to engage the audience here about the importance of microfluidics and how these microfluidic platforms is empowering very unique experiments that cannot be achieved otherwise with traditional biotechnology instruments. Another important project I'm leading in my lab is to utilize paper platforms to grow cells within the 3D porous environment within the paper itself, to grow cells and also to do cryopreservation. And the main project evolved around trying to solve a very problematic issue with cell banks and with these companies that store a lot of cells. Usually they store and cryopreserve cells in very small vials. They end up with thousands of vials, and then they have to deal with very large liquid nitrogen tanks. It's very problematic from a logistical point of view. And then our suggestion was to load these cells and cryopreserve them within large sheets of paper that can be rolled, that can be folded. And when customers order small samples, then simply you can use a scissor to cut small sample from these rolls of papers. And then the project evolved toward patterning these paper platforms and creating virtual microwells inside them to grow 3D cell cultures and spheroids for drug testing purposes. Here I add the published work, which you can check if you are interested in this. And also recently, I mean, it's not recently, 3 years ago when the COVID-19 evolved, we started working with point-of-care diagnostics for pathogenic detection. And we recently published a paper about this adhesive bandage for screening the antibodies after infection with the COVID-19 or even after the immunization. And another paper that is going to be submitted soon, it was about paper-based RT lab for rapid multiplex detection of pathogens. So now I just talked to you about some applications of microfluidics in the field of biomedical sciences. Now, next, I'll introduce to you the concept of the microfluidic probe. So here are how a conventional or a classical microfluidic chip look like. We have microfluidic channels, closed microfluidic channels, and you need to bring your sample inside the channel. So the concept of the microfluidic probe is exactly the opposite of that. Instead of pushing your sample inside the closed channel, now what you can do is to bring your microfluidics on the top of your sample. And here is an example, cell culture, adherent cell culture, cultured within a petri dish, sitting happily in the incubator. At the time of the experiment, you bring it to your microscope, and then you bring your microfluidic probe on the top of it. You approach it very closely, but without contact. So this is kind of using your pen to write on a paper. So you can write on this monolayer of cells, but under medium, cell culture medium, and without contact, without touching the cells. So the basic concept of the microfluidic probe is the push-pull configuration. So you have one aperture to inject fluid, while the other one is aspirating the fluids. So if we zoom into this area, we can look at these schematics. I'm hoping that you can see my mouse browser over here, the cursor. So here is the injection aperture, and here is the aspiration aperture. Now, given that the aspiration flow rate is larger than the injection flow rate, and given the gap is small enough, you can achieve the hydrodynamic confinement, which means whatever you inject into this small gap, you suck it back. It will get re-aspirated. So looking from the bottom, from a microscope, we can see this is the injection aperture, and this is the aspiration aperture, and we can see the hydrodynamic flow confinement over here. So the fluid is totally confined, nothing is leaking to the surrounding. We see the tear shape over here, and the beauty of it now, without having a physical channel boundaries, you are having a hydrodynamic virtual boundaries that if you only play with the flow rates of the injection to the aspiration, you can make these tear shapes smaller or bigger. And the other beauty of it, that since it's a contactless technology, now if the MFP or the microfluidic prop is attached to a micropositioner, you can move this hydrodynamic flow confinement from place A to B to C. So you can scan across the sample. So the advantages of such microfluidic prop technology is contactless, it works in scanning mode, it's decoupled from the cells or the sample, it can be easily integrated with other technologies. The original concept was published in 2005 in Nature Materials. The first author was David Yenker. He was a postdoc back then in IBM Zurich, working with Emmanuel Delimarche. But then he moved to McGill University as an assistant professor. I joined his lab as a PhD student. I got introduced to this concept and I advanced it further during my PhD. And then I moved in 2014 to NYU Abu Dhabi, and I assigned some of my own PhD students to advance this concept further. So this is an example of my work at McGill University when I was doing PhD, and then I extended the work here in my lab. So the concept of the microfluidic probe was extended to have 4 apertures instead of 2 apertures. And as you can see, that was aimed to generate movable or mobile concentration gradients to study cell migration. I will not go in details, this is published work, but here I'll show you another video, a single neutrophil migrating from the low concentration of IL-8, which is a chemokine, to the higher concentration. So a problem until 2015 that the technology of the microfluidic probe was fabricated using conventional ways. So this is the probe that was developed in IBM and then advanced by me at McGill University. So you need to design, you need to do soft lithography to cast the PDMS chip, you need to do a photolithography to etch the silicon chip, and then you need to manually bond both of the chips together. But also IBM Zurich developed another technology to do mass production of these microfluidic probes. They call it the VMMP, which is the vertical microfluidic probe. Here are the lengthy steps, and as you might guess, it's a very interesting, scalable technology, but yet you need a very high level and sophisticated clean rooms, which is a challenge for most institutions. Therefore, we moved into 3D printing these microfluidic probes. And that started in 2015, 2016, when I had my first PhD student, now is a doctor, Ayolla Premo. So back then, I had my first PhD student and I had my first 3D printer in the lab. And then the first thing we wanted to do is to test the 3D printing capability of producing functional microfluidic probes. And as you can imagine, in few days, you can do the CAD design. In a few hours, you can 3D print it. And maybe in a few tens of minutes, you can do some post-processing and get it ready. And we tried it on our cells and microscopes, as I will show you in the next slide. But the beauty now, if this works with 3D printing, then it's very simple. In terms of few days or few weeks, you can innovate new designs, new microfluidic probes, and get them in action. Also, now you win the 3rd dimension. So as the classical photolithography, we all know 3D printing is commonly in 2D. But now with 3D printing, you have a 3rd dimension, so you can innovate your design and you can integrate your chip with whatever other components you want. As the schematics are suggesting here, so this is a cross-sectional schematics of the 3D printed microfluidic probe integrated with reservoirs, integrated with plug-and-play connectors, integrated with also plug-and-play prop holder connectors. So here is a video of the first experiments we performed. And just to remind you, so we have two apertures over here, one to inject fluids, one to do a higher flow rate aspiration. The gap here, we're speaking in terms of tens of micrometers, depending on the design of your microfluidic prop and the application. And this is how the microfluidic prop look like. So this is an inverted microscope. This is a petri dish with a monolayer of adherent cells on the bottom of it. And at the time of the experiment, the microfluidic prop will come from the top and start the action. And you can see this video. Now, this is the tear-shaped hydrodynamic flow confinement, scanning across this monolayer of cells grown in a petri dish and labeling these cells with cell tracker, as you can see, writing A, B, C, D. And this is in terms of a few tens of minutes, you can achieve such a resolution on selective labeling of cells growing in a regular petri dish. Now, the 3D printing and proving it works, proving that it's biocompatible and the resin is not leaking any harmful chemicals to the cells, we could think how to advance this further. And our next step was to integrate the concept of the microfluidic prop with dielectrophoresis, DEP. So DEP is very famous in the field of microfluidics to do cell separation. And here what we wanted to do on the fly, cell separation and patterning outside the microfluidic channel. So all of this magic is happening at the tip of the microfluidic prop, which is an open microfluidic concept. So you can see the 3D printed microfluidic prop here, and then coated with a very thin layer of gold connected to the function generator. And the bottom layer over here is a glass slide coated with ITO, which is a transparent conductive material, and connected as the other electrode. And the design of the tip over here, you can see the central aperture is to inject the sample, while the surrounding apertures, all of them to aspirate the sample. And you can see the tip is not flat anymore here. We have an array of micro humps, and the purpose of these micro humps is to concentrate the electrical field for the purposes of dielectrophoresis, DEP. I'll show you a video in the next slide. So this is how the apparatus look like now. And this is a cross-section of a scanning electron microscope showing one hump, where the tip of these humps will focus the nonlinear electrical field in order to attract and arrest selected cells based on the DEP forces. Here is a video as I promised. So remember the aperture in the middle or in the center are to inject the cell suspension, while all other apertures is to aspirate. And you can see with the label here when I say the DEP is on or off. So you can see a cell arrest and cell wash off on the fly. And remember, this is not inside a microfluidic channel or chamber, but this is at the tip of the microfluidic prop over here, which we called it the DEP-enabled microfluidic prop. And this is another video showing patterning arrays of cell microcultures and co-cultures. So also you can see at the tip of the microhumps arresting the cells, and then DEP will be off. These arrested cells will be released and settle down on the bottom substrate based on microgravity, and then we can move the microfluidic prop to another area, and we end up with patterning these selected cells on the fly. And for the purposes of circulating tumor cells, and as we work with circulating tumor cells and clinical samples coming from prostate cancer patients already, what we wanted to do is also to integrate the concept of the cells and the herringbone microstructures at the tip of the microfluidic prop. So when we inject blood, and the bottom substrate will be functionalized with recognition bioreceptors, and then we can capture the circulating tumor cells on the bottom substrate within an open microfluidic system. So you can see this is the 3D printed microfluidic prop with a central injection aperture, which also can be used as aspiration, but we are using it to inject. and the two outer crescent-shaped apertures to aspirate, and you can see the entire area between the apertures are printed or structured with the herringbone features. So what I'll show you here, the microfluidic prop in this video, scanning across the bottom substrate, and the black circle over here is the hydrodynamic flow confinement bubble of the blood, whole blood coming from the patients. Now, the bottom substrate was functionalized with an array of different biorecognition receptors. As you can see, EpCAM, we left one line empty as a control, one line for PSMA, one line for PSA. We run the blood sample coming from the patient, and we do phenotyping based on how many cells were captured on each line. So this is a published work, and you can refer to the paper if you like to learn more. Now, moving forward, we wanted to miniaturize the concept. So up to here, all of these 3D printed microfluidic props were 3D printed using a regular 3D printer, few thousands of dollars. Any lab around the world can get it. But luckily at NYU Abu Dhabi, we have access to a high-end 3D printer, which is the Nanoscribe 2-photon 3D printer. So now we wanted to miniaturize the concept of the 3D printed microfluidic prop and integrate different physics to be able to do innovative experiments. So now here is what we are doing. This is the miniaturized 3D model of the microfluidic prop, 3D printed using the Nanoscribe machine. So you can see now we scaled it down at least 10 times smaller, again coated with gold, but this time not for integrating DEP or dielectrophoresis. This time we wanted to do single cell biopsy and cell transfection based on the concept of electropermeabilization. So the concept is now the tip of the microfluidic prop has these spikes, which will focus the nonlinear electrical field. We will localize the injection and the aspiration apertures into the size or the level of single cells. We will apply the electrical field, and that will open nanopores on the surface or the membrane of the cells, and then we can exchange material within the cytoplasm of every cell in a reversible manner, which means the cell will not die. So here's showing you this very small, where I'm covering it with the cursor of my computer mouse over here. This is the Multiphysics microfluidic prop. The big body here is just an adapter. And here is the setup, as you can see over there. So now by only changing the flow rates, we can change the size of the hydrodynamic flow confinement. So we can target single cells or few cells or tens of cells using the same setup during the same experiment. So here doing transfection, and I'll show it to you in the video. So here we are flushing these selected cells with the medium of PI. So PI is not permeable to the cells in natural conditions, but here, since we are applying the electrical field and opening up the nanopores within the cell membrane, we can insert this PI inside the cell itself and label the nucleus of it, as you can see over here, NYU. And further than that, instead of only pushing new reagents inside the cell, we started into looking into a single cell biopsy, which means when the nanopores open up into this single cell that we target, the question is, can we extract some of its own cytoplasm for further analysis or not? And this is the design we developed for this purpose. And we could see that we can target single cells and apply a harsh electrical signal that will lyse the cell, electrolyze the cell, and we can suck the entire cytoplasm of a cell. Or we can apply a single electrical signal to that single cell, a gentle signal that the nanopores will be opened, and then we suck a small content of the cytoplasm, and then when we stop that electrical signal, the cells will live happily ever after, and that's what we call it, the insensional biopsy. So we showed that this multiphysics device can perform excisional biopsy and incisional biopsy as well at the single cell level. Another application, we showed also that we can manipulate cells, as you can see over here. So we approach selected cell, as you can see over here, and then we start flushing it with trypsin while applying the electrical field to the hump over here, which will heat that region based on Joule heating, and that will disassociate the selected cells that we can suck it into the aspiration aperture, so move it from here to somewhere else. So this is published 2 years ago. You can refer to the paper if you like to learn more. And what we showed you that we can achieve spatiotemporal cytoplasmic biopsy at the single cell level in a contactless manner, targeting single cells. The device is mobile and we can scan across samples. It works with adherent cells. In the future, we would like to test this approach with tissue and biopsy slices. And the application would be into the transcriptomic analysis to reveal the intratumor heterogeneity within biopsy slices. What we are doing now, so far, for that technology, the bottom layer should be conductive. So that's an ITO coated glass slide. But now what we are doing, we're trying to integrate both electrodes, the working and the counter electrodes within the same microfluidic prop surface, as you can see over here. So we have 2 electrodes pattern, and we could show that it works within a 9-well plate, 96 microwells plate. So far, I showed you that we can do selective and on-the-fly cell separation and patterning. We can utilize it to capture circulating tumor cells outside microfluidic channels. We can do single cell transfection. We can manipulate single cells. We can utilize the technology of the microfluidic prop to develop a mobile concentration gradients, and we can do single cell biopsy as well. So now in the remaining few minutes, I will just talk to you about the 3D printed atomic force microscopy, where now inspired by our previous work, we could show that we can 3D print microfluidic props. And we were working with some microfluidic chips and using atomic force microscopies to do nanomechanical analysis of captured circulating tumor cells. But we encountered some troubles with the current silicon-based atomic force microscopy props because they are very stiff. So what we wanted to show that if we can 3D design the atomic force microscopes and then produce a decent enough atomic force microscopy tips using 3D printing. As you can see over here in this video, if we can do that, we can innovate new designs of atomic force microscopies, and it's the same story. So usually atomic force microscopy tips are based on silicon microfabrication, which is limited to 2 dimensions. Now, if we can 3D print them, we open up the whole 3rd dimension and we can innovate into the design of these atomic force microscopies. We use the nanoscribe 3D printer, and we proved that we can produce working and functional and decent 3D tips, which we call them 3D tips. Those are atomic force microscopy 3D printed with different designs. We can innovate with new designs that never existed before. And also we showed that these 3D printed atomic force microscopy tips can be post-processed for sharpening. As you can see, we use focused ion beam to sharpen these 3D printed atomic force microscopy tips. And also we could integrate these 3D tips with carbon nanotubes to achieve high resolution and high speed atomic force microscopy imaging. So this is published last year. So I recommend you to go and read the paper if you're interested to learn more. Now, what we try to achieve in the future is to bring both worlds together, to bring the world of microfluidic props, integrated multiphysics microfluidic props, 3D printed, combine them with 3D printed atomic force microscopes to achieve what we envision to be called the fluid tip, which is the atomic force microscopy nanofluidic prop. So this is something we're going to continue working on the future. So what I told you so far in my talk, I talked to you about the technology of the multiphysics props and the technology of 3D tips, and told you that the future we try to bring both worlds and merge them together to produce a unique tool. So now, before I end this talk, I hope I'm not running out of time. I would like to acknowledge the people in my group who did the work. So here we see Ayub, he was leading the 3D tips. We see Ayola and Anoop. So they were integrating the DEP with the 3D printing of the microfluidic prop. Ala as well helped with that, and Dr. Mohammadin, and also Pavitra also helped with all the cell work. Dima, now she's trying to develop 3D printed microfluidic props to generate long-range concentration gradients for silicon metaxas studies. I would like to thank you so much, and I'll stop here. And back to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much for your wonderful talk. So it was very interesting, and we can talk about it more with our amazing panelists here. So let me introduce our panelists a little bit here so that you can, let me bring some of our panelists here. So, we have two speakers, Professor Yi-Kuen Lee and Professor Mohammad Qasaimeh. And then we have another three panelists, one from Thailand. So he's here now. Let's welcome Professor, I'm sorry, I cannot pronounce really exactly here, but Professor Pia Watanameta. I practiced, believe me. So from King Mokus Institute of Technology, Ladkrabang. And then we have one more panelist from China, Professor Xian Huang from Tianjin University, and our amazing hostess here, Professor Haisha Alice Chang from Peking University. Okay, so everyone is here, so we can talk about the technological aspect of what we've heard today, what we've learned today. So Professor Yi-Kuen Lee and Professor Mohammad Qasaimeh, you can ask each other too. So you can ask questions because I think you are in the same field. And I think further, because today is an Asian Day, so we can talk about opportunities and challenges and differences in depending on the countries, the environment, different environment, and then what affects the research progress, and then research working conditions, all about that. So, yep, everyone is here. Yes, we are on there. So.
Yes, cool. We are here. So I think we can start with Weibo. So Weibo, yeah.
Sure. Actually, I have this question that I want to ask Yi-Kuen and Professor Mohammad, because for a long time I'm talking about the reproducibility and the standardization of the CTC. I think that's the main issues that actually many companies and also the startup company from Professor Yi-Kuen are working on as well. And I'd like you to comment on those two things. Yeah. Reproducibility and standardization. How many markers do they use now? And how does your machine can produce the work? I mean, the accuracy. Yep. Thank you.
Okay, maybe Weibo, thanks for your this kind of a question. I think this is very important. But from my point of view, at this moment, there's no golden standard for CTC. One of the big question now is how can we have universal this kind of standardized way to define CTC? If there's no such kind of universal standard, why to define CTC? Then probably there's no standard tool to detect the CTC. So that is, I would say, is one of still fundamental questions. That's why I try to look at an alternative approach, right, to re-examine this kind of traditionally different way. For example, using this kind of EPCAM While cell search machine use iCANX, and then people use multiple biomarker, by chemical biomarker to, okay, I can really detect this CTC. But actually, it really depends on different cancer type have different kind of biochemical biomarker. That's why at this moment I can see this kind of critical CA number can be used to detect cell type. I would say if I continue to use my more mature, this kind of personalized MEF chip-based system, hopefully this kind of critical CA number can be much more universal. But again, from my own experience, cancer is nonlinear complex system. It's still difficult to get this kind of a universal way to define CTC. This and what actually my lab is working on ISO standard. You know that in order to get this kind of approval from maybe from EU, from Japan, from China, you have to go through ISO this standard for medical device quality management system, right? QC. So actually, my team have gone through very tough. This kind of thing is very difficult and very time consuming, but we are working on. Yeah. This is my general comment. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Wiebel. I agree with Professor Lee. So there are no standards as of now. And the problem, cancer is a very complex disease, and CTCs are very complex as well, and they're very rare. So it's not like we can get thousands of cells or thousands of samples from the same patient to study them further. So they're very rare, and our knowledge is limited on them. Plus, we don't have in the market the ideal platform that all hospitals will start using and start capturing CTCs. And then, so until we reach that point that there is a universal platform to capture and analyze CTCs, we will still having limited knowledge about them. So I think what Professor Lee is doing and many other around the world is to develop the ideal platform to isolate CTCs in an unbiased manner, in efficient manner. Then we will start generating more knowledge about CTCs, and after that we develop standardization. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, very good. Any questions for each other, Yi-Kuen and Mohammad? I'm sure you have.
Yes. Actually, I do have a question for Mohammad. I very you have got excellent research in this kind of unique microfluidic platform. So my question for you is, I'm sorry, now in Hong Kong we have a typhoon number 8. Well, microfluidic mechanics going on in Hong Kong, very noisy. But anyway, so my question is, with your nanomechanical characterization of CTC, can you make some unique this kind of way to understand the CTC in terms of mechanical property? Any unique research result from your microfluidic platform?
Yeah, thank you, Professor Lee. Very, very interesting question again. So running such type of research in this part of the world is not as easy as you would imagine. And our main trouble so far is in securing clinical samples. So hospitals over here are not used to do research similar to most large institutions in Asia and North America. So for us, we could develop the technology and obtain few clinical samples, up to 20 clinical samples, maybe across 3 years of the work. So maybe like the best we can do is to secure
but maybe
5
we
to
can
10
collaborate with each other.
samples.
I have too many samples to process. That's why I have to develop automation. Otherwise, I don't think I can handle such a big number of samples. So I would say it's great to see that we may have some collaboration. I have too many samples.
That would be paradise. That would be paradise for us to get samples. But something to note here, as we all know, atomic force microscopy.
I think we need to follow this kind of there's a new this kind of national biological safety law. So for any kind of new clinical study, the government of China now have very serious every new clinical study, we have to go through at least 3 months from the hospital RB and then go to the central government. There's a military assigned technology. But anyway, so I was cancer is a big problem. So we welcome international collaboration to solve the big problem, global health problem.
Yeah. Sounds great. Thank you, Professor Lee. But one main challenge about AFM-based nanomechanical characterization is that, as we know, atomic force microscopy is very low throughput instrumentation. So imagine you need to bring the tip cell by cell, CT by CT, and then do kind of imaging on it and squeezing. You obtain multiple force curves, and then you do data post-processing to the data to analyze the elasticity and the adhesiveness of single CTCs. But maybe the best we can do is like, say, 10 CTCs per hour. It's not like as your platforms, it's high throughput. You can achieve thousands of cells per minute, even higher throughput maybe. So that's main challenge in atomic force microscopy in general, but it's a very high resolution. I don't think there's a microfluidic approach that can achieve the resolution of atomic force microscopy. So there's a good and bad in the story, but definitely I'll be highly interested to collaborate with you, Professor Lee. Thank you.
Yeah, this is why we are here, iCANX talks, right? So we accomplished our goals to set up the potential collaboration. Yeah. So Professor Xianhua, would you have any like technological questions for these two speakers?
Yes, I do have actually I have two questions for individual speakers. First of all, I would like to ask Professor Lee a question because actually today we just finished a survey about how are we going to use the chatbot just like ChatGPT in our research. I'm very interested in hearing about your insight because you mentioned that you trained the ChatGPT to do something, and also we can use some AI program to do the imaging analysis. And so my question is that how when we do research, we do need to rely on some AI tools and also some chatbot like ChatGPT. But how can we prevent this kind of chatbot to provide some false information to us, right? So to just to lead us to a different direction that maybe we waste some time to explore this direction.
I think that's a very good question. At this moment, ChatGPT or GPT 4.0 is a generated AI. Unfortunately, it suffers this kind of hallucination. So that from my own experience since last December, I keep it every day. So that I think the accuracy is about 80 to 90%. You cannot 100% trust the result from ChatGPT or GPT 4.0. You have to double check with your own domain knowledge. This is my general comment. So that that means from as a research point of view, I think ChatGPT, GPT 4.0 is a very good way to do research, brainstorming. But you cannot just 100% rely on the result from this kind of generated AI. And also you have to do some additional fine tuning to improve the performance. So that's actually a lot more engineering work to do. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I have another question for Professor Qasaimeh. So since you talk about Microfluidic Pro, so from my understanding, a Pro may contain some sensing, sensing tools that can sense cells or whatever chemical that you get from the cells in a very high throughput methods. So you mentioned that you are going to integrate maybe AFM with the Pro, but what other approach are there available that we can use to also provide us very high throughput information about the, for example, the chemical data or the concentration data from the cells?
Yeah, thank you so much for your question. So the microfluidic probe concept is similar to the atomic force microscopic concept. So one limitation, main limitation of microfluidic probes is low throughput. So you need to move from one cell to another to another. So that's something maybe I should highlight it in my talk. But that's okay, because sometimes you don't need the high throughput, like in the example of circulating tumor cells. So you get a blood sample from patients, it's 7.5 milliliter. So in general, or as a starting point, you would expect maybe 10 CTCs from each ml. So from the entire sample, maybe you're expecting 70 cells. So now if you push these 70 cells in a microfluidic chip for high throughput, you don't need the high throughput because 70 cells is very low throughput anyway. And these 70 cells might get lost within the fluidic channels, connectors, and chambers. So microfluidics in general is for high throughput, but sometimes you need the technology for low throughput. So if you capture these 70 plus CTCs on a glass slide and you can observe them by eye under a microscope, then you can come with a microfluidic probe and try to operate on every individual one. Yes, it still is low throughput, we recognize that, but perhaps in the future, this can be integrated that with other technologies, such as that the bottom substrate is kind of an array of digital microelectrodes. And using DEP, you localize every single CTC within a specific area. And if you can achieve that, then you can come with a microfluidic probe with many apertures that is high throughput with a robotic system alignment, and then you operate on every individual CTC at the same time. So perhaps, here is the problem is not only the microfluidic probe, but your sample also. If you can have it localized within specific areas, such as the digital microfluidic, or maybe inside microwells. If you have an array of microwells and every microwell contain only a single CTC that you captured using different technology, or maybe integrated within the same technology, then your top or the top microfluidic probe that is coming from the top, like this bottle, you can make alignment, and this step can have an array of many apertures that you align them to the microwells. So I think this is kind of the future, and there is Professor Thomas Gervais from University de Montreal. Also, he's one of my co-authors on early work during my PhD. Now he has his own lab in University de Montreal, and he had supervised different PhD students. So he showed that the concept of the microfluidic probe can be multiplexed and can be high throughput by combining many apertures within the same microfluidic probe tip. And I believe he published this work in PNAS and Nature Communications as well a few years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, I hope
Thank you.
answered your question. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, I think we are in a good shape to move on. So yes, Alice, would you want to?
Yeah, I have a question from the audience. Also, Fu Sheng is I don't know. Can you, Mohammed? Can you touch this? AFM can scan the CTC, of course, but what's the clinical application for this skill? So, can you comment on this?
Very nice question. Thank you, Alice, and thank you for the person in audience who asked this question. So for us, we are the technology guys. So we develop the technology, and we hope that clinical collaborators and biologists will reach out to us, inspire us for further applications. For us, we wanted to capture circulating tumor cells outside microfluidic channels. And we did that. So now decoupling the biorecognition receptors from the microfluidic delivery system empowered us that now the bottom substrate can be functionalized with different biorecognition receptors. So earlier, we did that in multiple chips. So we had 3 chips running in parallel, where the sample is splitting into 3 different chips. And developing these chips take time and cost money. But now, later on with the technology of the microfluidic probe, we showed that a single microfluidic probe can capture circulating tumor cells on different lines of biorecognition receptors. So that's a proof of concept. But now, why 3 different biorecognition receptors? First of all, the most popular one is the EpCAM. But many people, many publications in the literature criticize EpCAM, saying when these cells travel during circulation, they down regulate their EpCAM receptors. So if you only have EpCAM capture recognition receptors, you might miss some cells. Therefore, we functionalize another line with PSA, which is prostate-specific antigens, and a third line with PSMA, which is prostate-specific membrane antigens, trying to capture more CTCs. If we miss some CTCs on the EpCAM line, hopefully we get it on another line. And also, we are envisioning this in the future might help us to phenotype the profile of every specific patient. Maybe some patients, most of their CTCs will be captured on the EpCAM, while other patients, maybe most of the CTCs will be captured on the PSA line. Well, if that's something gonna happen, for sure, there is a reason behind that, and that will explain to us about the phenotype of these CTCs that will tell us how that patient is responding to whatever X chemotherapy they're having. Totally unexplored, totally unexplored. So we're developing technologies to explore this in the future. I hope this answered the question.
Okay, super. Yeah, Miso. Yeah. So I
Yes,
think
I-
we can move to for the Asian
Yes.
Day, Yeah. This time we are so lucky to gather people from different part of Asia. Yeah, so for the science and technology, of course, in different part was quite different. Yeah, we're also looking forward to get more collaboration like
Yes,
Yi-Kuen and
Asian
Mohammad. Of course,
collaboration.
you can collaborate. Yeah. So we can talk about that. Yeah.
Yes,
Maybe I can
we're in a
start the
good shape.
question.
Yes,
Yeah.
we are in a good shape to move on. So, I'm from South Korea, and we have 4 countries. So Abu Dhabi, and then Hong Kong, and China, and Thailand, right? So I think it's a great opportunity now. So to talk about the similarities and differences among the countries, even in Asia. So I looking at your backgrounds, all of us, I think we have some experience before, like studying abroad, like in the United States or in Canada, or so. I think I was wondering what you felt like as a difference between the studying in other countries and your home countries, like conducting the research. So probably Weibo.
Yeah, Weibo is the
Professor
best
Weibo.
example. That started in the US and had collaboration in Europe and many countries. Weibo, please.
Yeah, I have to say that actually when I started moving back here 10 years ago, it's quite a big challenge to start the labs here. Well, I mean, because of the field that I'm working on, it's pretty unique. I mean, even in the US, right? Themselves, there are not many labs in the US actually working on photonics and MEMS and NIMS there. But I took that as the opportunity to actually find more collaborations. I think that's a key in working in this part of the world here, and actually, well, I mean the responses or the collaboration that has been building over past decades has helped me a lot. Especially, I knew Yi-Kuen when we were students at UCLA before I moved to Stanford. Yeah, and we used to keep in touch and have quite a few projects and publications together, even though we are coming from a totally different department. He's from MAE, I'm from electrical engineering, but parts of the research are overlapping. But yeah, I say Thailand is on the progressing path toward developed nation, but there are still some many things that we need to work on. Thank you.
Okay, hi Miso. Maybe I follow up a question for Weibo. Okay, Weibo,
sure.
that's for you. Recently I saw really active for the Thailand in science and technology. I see many, very active face, aggressive young person was grow up. So could you tell us something about the, science and technology in Thailand? What's going on for them?
overall picture. So 3 or 4 years back before the COVID, actually, we actually combined the department of the sorry the what do you call it, the authority that take care of the higher education with the Ministry of Science. So now we combine to be one Ministry of Science and higher education together. We call it. There's some nickname there. I think that's moving toward the right path because previously we are I'm in the higher education, right? This is a university level. We are with the primary school, and we were with the high school before, and the the system are pretty complicated. And but since that, actually, we try to improve. Previously, we have only a few funding agencies, and now we try to actually branch us out for social science as well. And I think that's a new thing in Thailand because social science has always been neglected. And I think like I said, I think we there are many good people trying to do the right thing, but of course I have to say there are not many good people that try to do bad thing as well. So I think it's a constant fight between the two. But which I think we have yet to see what's going to come out in the future. But I still believe that Thailand could potentially be successful if we actually moving toward the right path. Thank you.
Okay, maybe we can go to Yi-Kuen. You want to talk
Okay.
about?
Yeah. Well, I was just saying my hometown origins in Taiwan, and then I finished my undergrad and master in National Taiwan and study PhD at UCLA. At the time, we have Weibo, because Weibo is my actually was a PhD classmate. So I have to know that well, it's a very excellent this kind of experience to study. Now, PhD in the United States, we can see all this excellent this kind of student from all over the world. And when come back to Asia, especially actually I didn't come back to Taiwan. I go to Hong Kong, and then actually about more than 20 years ago, at that time actually not too many people work on this area actually microfluidic or MEMS. So that times, but of course in the past 20 years actually I witnessed that the number of new researcher in this area is keep increasing. MEMS microfluidic is much more. As usual, now I would say we have a pretty big number of research in Hong Kong, Shenzhen, or this Greater Bay Area now. Yeah, I would say that this area will continue to grow from my point of view. Yeah, and especially in recent 1 or 2 years, I'm surprised the Hong Kong government put a lot more funding for push this kind of research, $10 billion funding, $10 billion to try to convert this kind of very good research from university to commercialization. Yeah, so I would say it's something I would say Hong Kong is in the big transition now. Yeah, of course, I'm very happy to see that I can really train some of the excellent students become entrepreneur. My colleague, DJI person, Professor Xiang Li student, all his PhD study my course, mechanical vibration. I'm very surprised. Our students become have excellent stock company become unicorn. Why? The largest this kind of consumer drone company is our student, master student, Feng Wang. We have another student who the biggest this kind of major company is also our student in our department. I'm very happy to train this kind of excellent student, not only engineer, entrepreneur, become unicorn. And that is I think it's as educator. I think it's a very big reward. Especially today, I got the email from my PhD graduate. He got the job offer from Apple in Silicon Valley, and Apple want to apply special visa for him.
Oh,
now
that's a great news.
yeah,
Congratulations.
I'm very happy to see educate this kind of good student to become entrepreneur and also good become professor, because I would say very happy to train a good engineer. Yeah.
Okay, Yi-Kuen, Yeah,
Mm.
other people so maybe don't know that we started the IEEE NAMS conference at 2005. That's a very beginning of Yi-Kuen was joined
Yeah.
the faculty at Hong Kong
Yeah,
UST.
yeah.
So, last 20 years really,
Yeah.
transform very fast, rapidly, everything was like, take the rock.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
nice. Yes. May I have another question for Mohammed? Yeah. So, normally, in the Middle East, normally a lot of people now think more about the female students, go to science and technology. But I saw in your slides, you have, several
Yeah.
female students.
Yes, I was very
I'm
impressed too.
really happy to see that,
Yes,
right?
yes,
So,
yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, Mohammed, can you tell us something, in your university, in the system in the Middle East, something new is happening now?
A perfect question, Professor Zhang, and thank you for noticing that. I mean, I'm really delighted about it. Let me tell you that in engineering at NYUAD, we have a committee called IDBE in Engineering Committee, and we look at this. IDBE is abbreviation of inclusion, diversity, equity, and belonging. And looking at females in engineering and STEM sciences is very critical goal for us in engineering and for NYU Abu Dhabi as well. So we have an entire university level IDBE committee as well, and we look at all of these aspects. So I originally come from Jordan. Jordan is in Middle East again. So when I was an undergraduate student in Jordan, in general, females in engineering were more than males in engineering. Not in mechanical engineering, though. I was in mechanical engineering, so boys were more than girls. But if you look at the entire engineering, such as computer and civil and chemical engineering, so the population of female undergrads were more than the male undergrads. I think this is a common thing in the Middle East. But the problem is the workforce. The problem after they graduate, most of them do not go to get a job. They sit at home. As a matter of fact, my wife, she's a graduate from Jordan and she's an engineer, but now she's sitting at home. Partially my fault because we have 3 kids and she's taking care of them. She's happy. No one's forcing her to do it, but it's kind of a tradition. It happened as a tradition. But here at NYUAD now, in engineering, we have around 50% female undergraduate students, and they go to the workforce after graduation. They're very bright. Often when I talk to my colleagues, I refer to some students to be the best in my class, and those are females. Female engineers are brilliant, something we should all admit. Still, boys are doing well, but females are amazing. But yeah, we need to look at this as a scientific community, always care about the gender balance, encourage. I have 2 daughters and 1 boy. Always I encourage my daughters to do STEM. It depends on us. I mean, the story is long. I don't want to take most of the time. But still, in engineering here at NYUAD, we don't have enough female professors. So something we're working on it, and we always invite female colleagues and candidates to apply for jobs in our division. Thank you, Professor Zach.
Yeah, so I used to have
nice.
I used to have so many female friends in my undergrad in my department, and then once I went to graduate school, less. And then once I got the job after my PhD, less. And then after 10 and 12 years now, after I got my PhD, I cannot see any more like female scientists around me. So I feel a little bit lonely because I need to make the gender balance only with myself. So I have to be in all the committees. So that's why that's the most important key message here. So that's why I try to be shown as frequent as possible on iCANX talks or any other conference, so that female students can get encourages, they can survive. So yeah, so Alice.
You already, be a big icon. Yeah,
Oh,
many
thank you.
Chinese students would say, yeah, we love Miso, yeah, it's really important, that the female scientists or even female graduate students, also students who showed up. to let them know, you have chance, you have opportunities. You
Yeah,
got there, other people must pay attention.
yeah, just being a female doesn't guarantee anything, but like I want to just show myself like working as a nice scientist so that people can get the nice images or impressions about female scientists like in the society. So let's
Yeah.
try better, Alice. So
Yeah, we have a Huang Xian here,
Yes, yes,
Xian
yes.
is in charge of the youth talks. So youth talks
Oh,
have a lot of, opportunity, to push up for the young female scientists. Xian, could you
Yeah.
tell us something about young youth talks?
Yeah, we do have a lot of female speaker for the youth talk. We try to maintain the balance between the female and male speaker because, as a matter of fact, for female scientists in China, many of my colleagues are female. So we do have a lot of very excellent females, such as Professor Zhang. She is the role model for many female scientists in China. So actually, I'm very happy to see the first Middle East speaker that today, because we also want to actually have the first Middle East speaker for the youth talk, because mostly the speaker come from say if they come from Asia, maybe they come from Singapore or Hong Kong and China. So hopefully I can build connection with Professor Qasaimeh, and maybe you can recommend some very talented scientists, including female scientists in Mid East, to present their excellent work in youth talk. So actually, I have one more question for Professor Qasaimeh. I think this is the question for many audience, because the university in Middle East, especially the university UAE, is very attractive right now. The UAE has become one of the destination for many students who are going to pursue their PhD study in other than United States, Europe. Maybe they are trying to consider Middle East, especially UAE. I think there are many cultural difference, right? But can you just tell us a little bit what will be the unique experience to study in, for example, New York University, Abu Dhabi, compare with maybe studying in the United States or studying in China?
Brilliant. Thank you so much for this very important question. And let me note that I'll be very happy in the future to help you secure speakers from the MENA region, because I'm a big believer that science and technology is not limited to countries or gender or age. We should all work together, especially when it comes to cancer. The entire world has to unite to be able to solve it. I lost my dad to cancer, and still there's no therapy to cancer. It's crazy. We reached Mars and the moon, and still we can't solve some problematic cells in our own bodies. So that's one. I'll be happy to do that in the future. Two, the UAE is a very classical Middle Eastern country. Most of the population in the MENA region or the Middle East are Muslims. So people, when they think about Middle East or even the Gulf region, such as UAE, they think is like mountains of sand, which is true. And they think of camels, which is true again. But they think it's not as civilized or it's not up to standards. But now, maybe this was in the 70s and the 60s. Now the world is all small village. It's very open. The UAE and many other countries in the Gulf region and in the Middle East are very civilized. If you walk to Dubai, it's as fancy as in New York. You see people from around the world, maybe more than walking in New York. You see people from Asia, from Middle East, from Europe, from Russia, from everywhere. So you will not feel that you are in Middle East if you consider the Middle East is like different style. So you will not really encounter any problems or any differences, except maybe very nice differences that you get exposed to different culture. You see different aspects of the country. I lived in Jordan. I'm originally from Jordan, and then I lived in Montreal in Canada. Then I lived in Boston, in Massachusetts for a year or so. I can't tell, that there are disadvantages of being in Abu Dhabi or in the UAE. I mean, as a matter of fact, always I talk to colleagues and I say the best city to live in the Middle East or in the MENA region would be the Abu Dhabi city to me, because I'm originally from Middle East, but still the level of the civilization and the openness, how much it's open, and the diversity of the people you see in the street. I mean, I think in Abu Dhabi and Dubai, you cannot match it anywhere else. So I would welcome everyone to visit us, and I would really assure you that you will really enjoy your time, except in the summertime, it's very hot. That's something we all know. Other than that, in the winter time, it's very beautiful weather, and you will really enjoy that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, you convinced me. I want to visit Abu Dhabi.
Perfect. I would be happy to welcome you to our campus.
Winter.
Yeah.
Summer too hot.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you so much for sharing your stories. I think we can talk about this like forever, but we need to sleep and we need to work. So let's wrap up at this time. And thank you so much for everyone for being here and then sharing your stories. Thank you so much. Okay, so I would like to I'd like to deliver this the virtual certificate to Professor Yi-Kuen Lee for your wonderful talk and the more wonderful stories about your experience. Thank you so much for being here, and we are so proud of you. And then Alice will deliver the actual virtual certificate to you by email again. And then Professor Mohammad Qasaimeh, thank you so much for showing us your amazing like female students, and then also your wonderful research in Abu Dhabi. So thank you so much for being here, and we are so proud of you again. Okay, everyone. Yes, thank you so much for being here, everybody. And
thank you.
Please,
thank you very much.
Yes, and please come back to us like next week again. We're gonna have amazing committee members again, and then you're gonna see Martin Teo and Christian, and then Elif Vilan as our speaker. So see you next week, and thank you so much, everyone. Bye bye.
Okay, thank you. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
不再是奇迹，不再是幻想，此刻真感觉全世界为我鼓掌。不必太在意身旁惊奇的目光，可以点点头，可以放声歌唱。我创造奇迹，我拥有梦想，我希望看见所有骄傲的脸庞。不再为曾经失败放弃或感伤，努力才是真的方向。I can， 没有什么可以阻挡心中无限的力量。I can， 你也能够像我一样飞越最高山岗。I can。没有什么可以阻挡心中无限的力量。I can， 你也能够像我一样飞越最高山岗。 造奇迹。我拥有梦想，我希望看见所有骄傲的脸庞，不再为曾经失败放弃或感伤，努力才是真的方向。I can，没有什么可以阻挡心中无限的力量。I can，你也能够像我一样飞越最高山岗。I can，没有什么可以阻挡心中无限的力量。I can，你也能够像我一样飞越最高山岗。能够像我一样飞越最高山岗。